Hello, today we talk about the silent way method. It is a method of language teaching originated in the early 70s and introduced by Caleb Categno. It derives its name from the fact that the teacher conducting a silent way class is silent for the most of the time, and the learner should be encouraged to produce as much language as possible. So the silent way advocates that we start from what the student knows. The teacher assists learners to use that knowledge in the target language, and then the teacher can continue putting together sounds to make name word. Silence is considered the best vehicle for learning because in silence students concentrate on the task to be accomplished and the potential means to its accomplishment. The silent way claims to facilitate what psychologists call learning to learn. The general goal set for language learning is near native fluency in the target language and correct pronunciation and mastery of the elements of the target language are emphasized. So the teacher should give them only what they absolutely need to promote their learning, and they become independent by relying on themselves. One of the basic principles of silent way is that teaching should be subordinated to learning. In other words, Categno believed that to teach means to serve the learning process rather than to dominate it. Categno looked at the language learning from the perspective of the learner by studying the way babies and young children learn. A teacher's silence frees the teacher to closely observe the student's behavior. Students learn, they must give the teacher their attention in order not to miss what he says. The student's attention is key to learning. Also, students should engage in a great deal of meaningful practice without repetition. The elements of the language are introduced logically, expanding upon what students already know. The students gain autonomy in the language by exploring it and by making choices. Language is for self-expression, and also the teacher can gain valuable information from students' feedback. For example, he can learn what to work on next. Students learn how to accept responsibility for their own learning. All right, now let's talk about the techniques and materials. The first one is a word chart. The teacher and later the students points to words on the wall charts in a sequence so they can read aloud the sentences they have spoken. The way letters are colored helps the students with their pronunciation. The teacher and later the students point the color coded in this chart in order that students associate these sounds of the language with their spelling. For example, listed together and colored the same color block for the sounds. They are also have their spellings. So there are a number of charts available in other languages as well. Next one is rods, and they can be used to provide visible actions or situations for any language structure, so to introduce it or to enable students practice using it. They trigger meaning. Situations with the rods can be created in such a way that the meaning is made clear. Then the language is connected to the meaning. At the beginning level, they can be used to teach colors and numbers. Later on, they can be used for more complicated structures, for example, statements with preposition. Okay, and also they can be used abstractly as well. For instance, for students to make clock when learning to tell time in the target language, or to create family tree, or to make floor plan of their house. So next one is sound color chart. It contains a block of color, each one representing sound in the target language. So the teacher and later the students points them so they can read it. About the teacher's silence. So the teacher gives just as much help as it's necessary and then is silent. So or the teacher sets up an unambiguous situation, puts a language structure into circulation, and then it's silent. Even in error correction, the teacher will only supply a verbal answer as a last resort. So students are encouraged to help another student when he or she is experiencing difficulty. It is important that any help be offered in a cooperative manner, not a competitive one. So self-correction gestures, we already examined like some of them when we talked about the direct method. So these gestures could be added to this list. The next one is structured feedback. Students are invited to make observations about their day's lesson and what they have learned. So the teacher accepts that students' comments in non-defensive manner, hearing things that will help him to give direction. So where the teacher should work when the class meets again. Okay, let's talk about the syllabus. It is a basically structural syllabus with lessons planned around grammatical items and related vocabulary. So at least 15 minutes of every hour of instruction would be spent on pronunciation. Okay, next one is student and teacher roles. So learner roles. Learners are expected to develop independence, autonomy, and responsibility. The autonomous learner chooses proper expressions in given set of circumstances and situations. The absence of correction and repeated modeling from the teacher requires students to develop inner criteria and to correct themselves. So learners have only themselves as individuals and the group to rely on, and so must learn to work cooperatively than rather than competitively. A learner also must be a teacher, student, part of support system, problem solver, and self-evaluator. And teacher's role. The teacher is a technician and engineer who facilitates learning. The teacher role is one of the neutral ones. He is observer, neither praise nor criticize, so he merely looks for continued improvement. So the teacher is silent. His presence in the classroom is limited to providing a model of the language that the students are going to work on. So procedure. The first part of the lesson focuses on pronunciation. If response is incorrect, the teacher will attempt to reshape the utterance or have another student present the correct model. After practice with the sound of the language, sentence patterns, structure, and vocabulary are practiced. Okay, that is all for today. These are our references. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.